Now in this video we will discuss about the multi-dimensional array. As we have already seen the basic implementation with the single dimensional array, using which we have assigned the value, initialized the array and access the elements of array. Now here, since we are talking about multi-dimensional array, means having rows and columns and maybe some more directions. So as here you can see, for defining a multi-dimensional array, you will have to give a type as we used to do, then array name, and then in previous video we just passed one square bracket with one size. Now since it is the multi-dimensional array, you can pass as many as you want. Logically we go for 2 or 3 multi-dimensional array only, but again it's not a limit, it's about you how you are going to handle that. But the best example of any multi-dimensional array is the 2-dimensional array. So as here you can see, since it is 2-dimensional array, means the rows and the columns will be there. So the first will be the number of rows which you want to create in the array, and the second one is the number of columns. Like if I'll say int a 3 4, means there will be 3 rows and each row will be having 4 columns. So in short, there will be 12 memory blocks which can store the value of integer type. So whenever you will start working with this 2-dimensional array, every time just make sure you will be passing the index of row first and then the index of column. Once you define it like that as a pictorial representation, you can refer an array like this. As here you can see, there are 3 rows and 4 columns. So the first element will be 0 0, means index of row, then index of column. So both are 0. Now 0th row, first column, 0th row, second column, and 0th row, third column. That's the index. So similarly, you can just write a loop, or for accessing the individual block, you can just start passing the indexes after the name of the array like that, and you can use the indexes for reading and writing the values. So as here you can see, for inline initialization, what we have done, there are 3 rows and 4 columns. So the main curly braces which are starting from here till here, and after that you can see the first row 4 elements, second row 4 element, and third row 4 element. This curly braces which we have put is just for enhancing the readability. Otherwise you can start you can write the values like this also. Similarly, you can also just pass 4, that is the number of columns, and you should not pass number of rows at that time, because it will be dependent on like how many values you are passing. Accordingly the number of rows will be decided. But make sure if you have passed 4, then these values should be in the multiple of 4 only. Like here you can see there are 12 values which we have passed, so ultimately there will be 3 rows. But if you will pass something invalid like 13 or 14 elements, so it will give you an error. So just make sure of such things, and then after, as in the previous example also of single dimensional array, we have used a for loop for accessing the element programmatically. You can do it in a very same way. So let's see practically how to start working with multi-dimensional array.
In this example of multi-dimensional array, you can see I have defined the 3 arrays with same elements in a different way. As in the first one, you can see I defined an array of 3 by 4, that is 3 rows and 4 columns, and here I just passed the 12 values, that is 3 into 4, that is 12. So I have passed 12 values, 1 2 3 4 10 20 30 40 11 22 33 44. So these are the values which will be assigned row by row. But as you can see, it is not very much clear like what all values will go on the first row, and similarly for the second and third row. So here what we have done in the ARR2, like we have just separated each row element with the curly braces. Like the first curly braces is are the elements of the first row. Inside the second parenthesis we have the second row element, and similarly for the third row element. So this will give you a much clear output. You can, for more readability, you can even separate them in the different line, like this is the first row, then after you can separate that to second line, and then to third line. But it will again make no difference as the output will remain same in all the cases. In the last one, I have not specified the number of rows, but I just said number of columns. So I have to make sure like whatever elements we are passing, it should be in the multiple of 4. So accordingly, it will generate the number of rows as well. Now, doesn't matter how you are defining, the definition way should be logical and valid. Now here I have a couple of variables like int I and j for reading this array. You can also take the elements from the user, but here I just inline initialized. So here I have first written a loop using I variable, that is the outer loop, which will run according to the number of rows. As you can see, the number of rows are 3. The index of rows will come from 0 to 2, like 0, 1 and 2. Similarly for column, it will be 0, 1, 2 and 3. So the j means the inner loop will get executed from 0 to 3, that is less than 4. And then I can read the values. Like here I just print the number after a tab space. As soon as first row will be read, I will just break the line in order to make the readability. So let's execute and see the output. And here you can see I have got the elements, that is first row, that is 1 2 3 4, second row, and then the third row. So this is how you can define the array of multidimensional, but doesn't matter how many dimensions you are adding, it's just a way to represent the things. When we will go through the address of these memory blocks, you will find it is in a continuous memory location. Doesn't matter whether you separate them in a different line while printing or not. So this is all about the multi-dimensional array, and here we covered two-dimensional array.